and welcome to Atop the Fourth Wall, where bad comics burn. No one cares about comic books. That statement is hyperbolic, but only so much so. What would be a more accurate statement is that mainstream comic books, the ones focused on superheroes put out by Marvel and DC, are considerably less popular than other mediums, or even other comics in general. The comics that actually are popular? Manga, webcomics, stuff directed at kids for schools, that kind of thing. Those are the markets that continue to have large readerships and money coming in. And of course, it's still a fraction of consumers when it comes to other mediums like TV and movies. As has been pointed out many times before, these days a mainstream comic to be super successful is to have orders in the range of 200,000 to 300,000 copies. So that's the maximum amount of people who will be reading it, not counting digital sales, which there aren't really any public sales numbers for. Compare that to, say, Game of Thrones, which has viewership in the millions. Avengers, Captain Marvel, Black Panther, these movies made billions of dollars. That's what I mean when I say no one cares about comic books. The actual readership numbers of mainstream books are minuscule compared to movies and TV shows. And it's not the worst thing in the world, nor is it a judgment of one medium versus another. It's just a fact of numbers. More people care about one thing versus another. Mainstream superhero comic books are a niche fan base, and the industry keeps failing to make it less of one. This wasn't always the case, of course. Sales numbers from the 80s and early 90s were very different than they are today, with several popular books selling in the millions. And there are a number of reasons why sales went down so sharply in the last 2 decades. One is the speculator boom of the early 90s, artificially driving up prices out of sheer greed so that comics were no longer an inexpensive impulse buy for kids looking for some cheap entertainment and thus hooking them for life. Another is the changing face of media distribution, where suddenly comics have more competitors to get the most bang for your buck, i.e. why pay $4 for maybe 10 minutes of entertainment when I can get a Netflix subscription for $10 and have access to a vast library of media that'll keep me occupied for weeks or months. And still another is continuity baggage. That impulse buy I mentioned before is even more of a detriment because suddenly you're not buying a single contained story, but part 3 of a 6-part storyline, and you have no idea what's going on in it because everything's written to be resold in trade paperbacks. But regardless of these factors, the truth remains. Movies and TV shows are still more popular than mainstream superhero comic books. But in the past, comic books served as a viable alternative to movies, especially before the home video market was a bigger thing. You want to experience that movie you saw again but has been out of theaters for a while? Well, here's a comic book adaptation. And thus we get to my little point in saying all this. Welcome to Movie Adaptation Month. For this and the next 4 episodes, we're going to take a look at 5 adaptations of movies into comics, do a little compare and contrast, and allow me to make some jokes at the expense of movies, because I don't normally talk about movies unless someone pays me to do so. Admittedly, this was not originally going to be 5 episodes. I had a different review planned for this week, but that episode requires a lot more work and setup, so I reshuffled the order a bit, moved that one to the summer, and moved up today's episode from the summer to now, since it fit with the theme month anyway. And with that, let's start this month with an ending. In 2016, I did a review of the comic adaptation of Batman and Robin. And while writing that review, I came to realize that there was a character arc throughout the 90s Batman movies for Bruce Wayne. Most likely unintentional as the filmmakers swapped out, but I did feel it was present, and thus I elected to explore the rest of the adaptations so I could talk to you guys about them. I killed the Bat credit card joke, did a crossover, had a Christmas episode, and that brings us to this one. Batman Forever, the last of the 90s Batman quadrilogy. Yes, I know that technically the term is tetralogy, but honestly, quadrilogy sounds better. Batman Forever occupies a weird space for these movies, smack dab in the middle of the serious, dark character pieces of the Tim Burton films and the puntastic, goofy, cartoonish antics of the second Joel Schumacher film. Obviously, it was designed to be more kid-friendly after the more adult themes and dour tone of Batman Returns to make it marketable, which is why it contains a scene of Nicole Kidman and her nightie really wanting to bang Batman and saying double entendres. And that's something we'll be exploring as we dig into Batman Forever, the official comic adaptation.
Introducing McDonald's Superhero Burger. Tomatoes, crisp lettuce, the great taste of 2 cheeses.
The cover is pretty decent, but I need to address the fact that the scans I'm using in the review come from a slightly different version of the book. My copy is a prestige format book, which is usually a more expensive version of a comic that's basically a trade paperback. Cardstock cover, higher quality paper, but smaller, equivalent in length 2 to 3 issues of a regular book. As such, the prestige format's cover is different than the one in the scans, which I suspect came from a regular magazine-style one-shot. That cover is pretty bland. Batman and Robin on a rooftop with Two-Face and the Riddler behind them. Boring. The prestige format's one, though, follows the formula set forth by the other Batman movie adaptations we've covered. Painted and more resembles a movie poster. It's also technically a wraparound with a film strip depicting scenes from inside the comic, although in this case it's just the suiting up sequence, but from later in the movie, yet using the costume from earlier in the movie. Plus this shot of a very confused looking Val Kilmer. If you've never seen Batman Forever, expect to see this expression a lot.
Dull surprise!
We open with a deleted scene from the movie. And like the other movie adaptations, aside from Batman Returns, we have something to signify that it's an adaptation. The script. Exterior, Arkham Asylum. Night, A Castle of Shadow. Man, they're really running out of interesting names for Castlevania sequels. Over, rain, howling evil wind, red lightning cracks, illuminates the aged structure, the hanging lantern. A script excerpt hangs in the sky. Wait a second, red skies and lightning? My God, they're trying to suggest Crisis on Infinite Earths happened, and that's why Val Kilmer has replaced Michael Keaton! And the doctor in charge of Arkham is Dr. Burton, explaining what happened to the former director! Anyway, the scene was obviously deleted because it didn't really need to be there, establishing only that Two-Face has escaped from Arkham and left a message in blood. The Bat must die! Pfft, lame. You should see what's happening in the room next door. Another big change from the movie right off the bat? The order of events has been changed. In the movie, it begins with Batman suiting up and going to deal with Two-Face holding a hostage at a bank vault. Instead, it begins with Bruce Wayne doing an inspection at Wayne Enterprises. And you know Bruce is a good boss since he lets his employees watch plot exposition TV at their desks while they work. Said TV gives us the story of Two-Face, how Harvey Dent was scarred by acid 2 years prior, and damage to his left brain transformed him into a violent criminal. Except while in the movie, the suggestion is that he wants revenge on Batman for failing to save him, here it's that he wants revenge for stopping his initial crime spree. Which is already a boring motivation as it is, but that is actually the least of the problems with Two-Face in this story. Anyway, inspection time. Mr. Wayne, have I told you that your inspections are a departmental highlight? Everyone loves it when our richer-than-rich boss comes down to micromanage us. Really? You all need to get out more. And that's coming from the guy who likes to sit alone in the dark in his huge mansion. An example of someone who needs to get out more is Edward Nygma, played by Jim Carrey in the movie. And naturally, he's at his 90s Jim Carreyist. In other words, playing Ace Ventura as a Batman villain. I think the idea was to be inspired by Frank Gorshin's performance in the original Adam West series, but I don't know. When you have Jim Carrey doing it, it's just him doing his then well-trodden-out shtick. It might have worked better if he was playing a more manic Joker rather than the Riddler, or at least scaled back a bit. Anyway, this version of Edward Nygma is a creepy weirdo obsessed with Bruce Wayne. In the movie, despite some awkwardness, Bruce is willing to give him a fair hearing on his project, which the manager, Stickley, admits was terminated this morning. But here, Nygma just vents it all out, and Bruce comes across as more standoffish and distracted, especially when there's dialogue cut. My invention beams any TV signal directly into the human brain. It makes the audience feel as if they are inside the show. I'm sorry, Edward, but tampering with people's brainwaves just feels a bit like mind manipulation. I didn't mention brainwaves or tampering with them. Yeah, but you did in the movie, and since I'm Batman, I know that. You're Batman? What? No! I'm Batman. And of course, the line that got me a recurring gag.
It just raises too many questions.
Or rather, it raises too many question marks. So instead of suggesting the moral questions this invention would invite, the problem is just confusion? This is why you include a user manual, Bruce! But yeah, dejected, Nigma swears to make Bruce understand his genius, and that night, the bat signal is lit to lead us into the actual opening of the movie. I suppose I couldn't convince you to take along a sandwich.
I'll get drive-through.
Very good, sir. That line will be perfect for all the McDonald's tie-in commercials for their superhero burger.
Worst part is, I don't even like their burgers. I'm much more into the McNuggets.
I really do have to wonder if that line was actually in the script or if they recorded it for the commercial and Schumacher just loved it so much he decided to keep it in. Anyway, he heads off to the bank in a Batmobile that, in my humble opinion, would have been better if it didn't have the huge unnecessary fin on top of it. Also, it glows red in the comic, while in the movie it's blue. Weird. At the bank vault, we meet Two-Face, who has a security guard tied up as he monologues.
Counting on Bat-Ass to rescue you?
Ah, the opposite of Bat-Dick. Two-Face flips his coin to determine whether the security guard lives or dies, and he lives, to be used as bait to lure Batman in. Also, Harvey, you've got a little something on your... Yeah. Anyway, Batman meets up with Commissioner Gordon and a psychologist named Dr. Chase Meridian.
Didn't see this coming.
We should have, though. The second bank of Gotham on the second anniversary of the day you captured him? How could Two-Face resist? We actually had a brief shot of taking him out when he started ranting and raving about how it wasn't 2:22 a.m. anymore and he wanted to call the whole thing off. Batman admits that he's read some of Chase's work on dual personalities and abnormal psychology. I'm flattered. You might have some interesting insights into Two-Face.
Why's that?
Because you fought him before? Let's just say I could write a hell of a paper on a grown man who dresses like a flying rodent.
Bats aren't rodents, Dr. Meridian. And that doesn't really answer my question about why I would have interesting insights into Two-Face. I dress up like a bat and punch people. I'm not really an expert in criminal psychoses.
He goes off to deal with Two-Face and his goons, who are all wearing two-toned masks that make them look like they're dressed like Deathstroke, basically meaning anytime I do their dialogue, I could be wearing this thing. And Two-Face, like an idiot, assumes that Batman is taking the elevator up, making his goons open fire on it. He easily deals with them with a bunch of kicks and goop and all that until Batman finds the hostage tied up in a bank vault. As soon as he goes in to free the man, the vault is sealed up and acid poured into it. Happy anniversary! And for your dying pleasure, we're serving the very same acid that made ours truly the men we are today!
My God! I'm One-Face!
For some reason, Two-Face then grabs the vault with a helicopter, which seems like that should be heavier than what the helicopter can handle, but what the hell do I know, and flies it up into the air. Batman borrows the security guard's hearing aid and uses it to open the vault lock from the inside.
No great trick. Your hearing aid let me listen to the tumblers inside the door. A surprising amount of Ask tumblers still active inside of it.
After getting the security guard to safety with a bat rope, he cuts the chain holding up the vault. I'm guessing he did so to keep it from getting cut and released onto the streets, and subsequently potentially harming someone, and starts climbing up. Two-Face apparently cannot tell when a big heavy weight has been released. Goodbye to that pointy-eared, steroid-eating, rubber-suited, cross-dressing night rat! Cross-dresser? Was there a movie in between this one and Returns where some very interesting things happened? Two-Face is also piloting the helicopter himself in the comic, so when Batman climbs up and punches him in the face, he just bails out as he sends it towards, the Statue of Liberty. Yeah, I know, it's got Gotham written on it, and it's officially called the Statue of Justice, and shockingly, the thing actually has its origins in Batman the Animated Series with a slightly different design, but this one is just straight up the Statue of Liberty. And the helicopter crashes into it and explodes. So I guess the Gotham City branch of the Ghostbusters is screwed. Batman survives by jumping into the water after expelling some Pepto-Bismol. The hell is that in this panel? Anyway, back at Wayne Enterprises, we cut out Stickley confronting Nigma over his continued work on his project and getting conked out by him. Instead, we just have Nigma testing his device on Stickley. In the movie, the device's actual function is a bit vague and covered by technobabble to simply say, it makes them feel like they're actually in the show. And the illustration of this shows fish coming out of a TV screen and mesmerizing Stickley. So I guess the idea is that it screws with your brain and makes you unable to distinguish what's on screen from regular reality while keeping you in a trance-like state. However, that idea does not explain why the hell Nigma is wearing that blender on his head. Yes, I know, the box, as it will later be called, is the device that's actually responsible for this, but why is he wearing one? He was just testing the device on Stickley. Oh, but he needs to be wearing it, since then, when he ups the power, it transfers neural energy from Stickley into Nygma's mind, essentially downloading information from one brain to another. At least I think that's how it works. He just says, I used your neural energy to grow smarter. Which, frankly, with this kind of movie, I half expected the ending to feature the Riddler walking around with a giant, oversized brain. Stickley, being a smarty smart, declares that Nygma is fired, and Nygma just throws him through a window. In the movie, that part of the building looked over a river, and thus the police doubted they'd find a body. But here, he's clearly in front of another building, and I'd think someone might notice all the telltale signs that this ain't suicide. Let me ask you some questions, Mr. Smarter Than Thou. Why are you so debonair, successful, richer than God?
Well, in that order, I'm rich, and my parents were rich before me, like most rich people.
In the movie, Nygma also somehow alters the camera footage to make Stickley's death look like a suicide, even though that makes no sense, and he wasn't suicidal. He also finds a little display booklet on his desk with a riddle on it.
If you look at the numbers on my face, you won't find 13 anyplace. Outdated Doctor Who posters that feature all the doctors.
Who would send you a riddle?
Maggie, that's the riddle. I know someone who might be able to help us answer it.
The world's greatest detective, everybody. Bruce goes to see Dr. Chase Meridian, except they cut out another scene, this time of Nygma assembling and delivering another riddle the night before. And despite the riddles being a plot point later, we never see it assembled, so anyone reading the comic and not seeing the movie is confused where the hell he's pulling the details from. If you look at the numbers upon my face, you won't find 13 anyplace. The answer is a clock, obviously. Might want to tell that to Freddy Krueger on that one Nightmares on Elm Street cover then. My opinion? The writer is a total wacko. Your doctorate is honorary, isn't it? Patient may suffer from obsessional syndrome with potential homicidal styles. Work better for you? Pretty thorough analysis from a single riddle! I'd hate to see what this woman thinks of the person behind a kid's joke book.
So you're saying he's a wacko?
Exactly.
Time's up.
You only started 2 minutes ago! He invites her to be his date for a charity circus event that night at the Hippodrome, which looks suspiciously like the Hall of Justice. Anyway, it's here where we see the Flying Graysons, where no doubt an assassin from the crowd will kill them, and Chris O'Donnell will be forced to eat rats by Batman. In the movie, they added an unnecessary brother to Dick Grayson, who was also killed with them, but all the shots in this seem to imply that he's not there. But anyway, while Bruce gets shot down on a potential long-term relationship with Chase, since she's still got a thing for Batman, Two-Face arrives and directs everyone's attention to a bomb he's brought with him, threatening to blow it up and kill everyone here, the first step of a major murder spree, unless Batman gives himself up. He figures that with Gotham's finest in attendance, either someone knows who Batman is, or someone is bound to actually be Batman.
There is logic in what he says.
The Flying Graysons, still up high, realize they can reach the bomb and get it outside of the building, and apparently the bomb is light enough to just be tossed by Dick one-handed out towards the bay. However, while he's doing that, his parents are killed by Two-Face. And I guess he cancels the whole murder spree thing and manages to get away, because we cut to sometime later with Dick Grayson arriving at Wayne Manor, since Bruce decided to take him in. I figured telling the cops I'd stay here saved me a truckload of social service interviews, so no offense, but I'm out of here. Yeah, social services will really hound mere boys of 25 like him. Like, seriously, movie, I get it. You needed an adult actor, you wanted Robin to be a teenager instead of a little kid for a variety of reasons, but no. Chris O'Donnell did not look like a teenager in 1995. He looked like a 25-year-old, if not older, and he never convincingly acts like a teenager. There's a reason everyone mocked him in these movies for being whiny, because he doesn't come across like a teenager going through growing pains. He comes across like an adult who never matured. In any case, he says he's not sticking around because he wants to hunt down Two-Face and kill him.
Killing Two-Face won't take the pain away. it'll make it worse.
More on that later. He convinces Dick to stick around at the mansion a bit by offering him a chance to work on some of his rare motorcycles, even possibly keep one as payment. Anyway, time for more scene reordering. The bat signal has been lit by Chase and gets Batman there. A scene which originally took place right after Bruce's inspection at the company. Last night at the circus, I noticed something about Dent. His coin. He's obsessed with justice, which is why he tried to bomb a circus and murder thousands of people. Seriously, lady, where did you get your degree? Like, what about the circus incident made you think he's obsessed with justice? He flipped the coin to decide whether he'd shoot two people because his psychosis makes him unable to make a binary choice without flipping it. But whatever, she points out that the coin is his Achilles heel.
You called me here for this? The bat signal is not a beeper. Just call me via OnStar, damn it!
I wish I could say my interest in you was purely professional.
Are you trying to get under my cape, Doctor? The bat signal is not a booty call.
You like strong women. I've done my homework. Okay, that's just the beginning line from the movie. The line in the film actually makes the strong connection that this does indeed take place in the same universe as Batman and Batman Returns, despite the changing tone.
I've done my homework. Or do I need skin-tight vinyl and a whip?
Because nothing gets me more in the mood to bang hot psychologists than being reminded of the tragic death of someone who was traumatized that I was very much in love with. Or maybe she didn't die, I don't know. Linkara's looking at that follow-up in a few weeks.